All right. So for the second episode of Panini BTC podcast interviews, we have SingaporeTexan, one of the biggest collectors on the Panini NFT platform. Ben, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking time out to speak to me today.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
All right. So Ben, if you could just tell me and the viewers about your collecting journey, how you got into collecting either physical cards and then eventually into the Panini NFT project.
Sure, yeah. I started collecting physical cards as a kid in the 80s and the 90s. I know I'm aging myself with that, but in the so-called junk wax era, I have like a ton of fond memories of collecting with my dad and a lot of my friends. I mean, we were obsessed back then. But then I got older and I took a pause, as a lot of people did, I think. But then when my oldest son was around 9, I got back into it as like a way to bond with him, just because I remembered what that experience was like, with my dad. And then now I'm obsessed with it, like, I mean, he's into it, but like, I'm like fully back into it. So that's how I got into the physical side. On the digital side, there was like a live stream back it's probably about 4 years ago. There was a live stream that Spinotron and another guy, SDSO, that Sean DeSoma, they were doing a live stream on Panini NFTs. And I like the thought of getting in early on something. And then also found that it was like far more affordable than physical.
Yeah.
That appealed to me. And so yeah, about late 2021, mid to late 2021 was when I made my first Panini blockchain purchase.
Well, I think I've heard a lot of people talk about how they got back into the hobby because of their sons or because of their daughters, and then it sort of acts like a father-son bonding theme.
Yeah, for sure.
That's kind of the reason why I think a lot of people like you have gotten back into the hobby over the past few years. So it's always nice to hear. So what does your collecting philosophy or strategy look like, Ben? What are the things that you're going after?
I feel like my collecting philosophy changes every year because I'm learning so much. I mean, as a kid, like, scarcity wasn't really discussed that much because, again, it was the junk wax era. But I think where I am now is that the cards that matter the most are not only the most rare, but they have a narrative behind them that makes them desired, some kind of a story that's really, really powerful. And I think part of the fun of collecting is figuring out that narrative before others do. That's part of the joy I've gotten out of Panini Blockchain, is that once I immersed myself in it, I knew, just as a collector, like, how much these would be desired down the road, because the narrative behind the cards, is so strong. I mean, these are the first ever licensed collectibles for every major player across almost like every major sport that you have like full proof of ownership of. And it all kind of came out in the last 5 years. And it's kind of this really rare opportunity, to what I think will become like the grail kind of collectibles down the road, as people go more and more online with their kind of digital identities or whatever. So that's a big part of my collecting philosophy. I mean, I collect physical just as much as digital. I mean, I collect both. I think there's big advantages of both of them. In terms of what I'm buying right now, so I'm a huge Spurs fan for the NBA. I grew up in San Antonio, and I'm a big Packers fan in the NFL. Don't ask why. It's a random reason, but because of that, I've been doing recently gold prism runs of Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili and Aaron Rodgers on the physical side. On the digital side, I'm trying to complete the full gold prism sets right now for NFL across all releases. And that's really nice because it kind of gives me like this dopamine fix of being able to like hunt for cards every day.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where, I don't know, 80% of my time, I'd say, buying right now is just, trying to kind of do these set runs or these air runs of a prism card.
Yeah. No, that's great. So for someone who's new, who's entering the space, where do you think the appeal of digital collectibles lie?
Well, there's, I think, a few things about digital collectibles that are interesting. I kind of released a top 10 list a while ago because I every time I saw this sort of benefit, I kind of wrote it down and it kind of became these sort of recurring themes. But one is the immediacy of it. Like when you buy the collectible, you get it immediately. Whereas, a lot of times when you buy a card today online, there's this lag time from whenever it arrives to you, which is also nice because then you can also sell it immediately if a player is having a good game. That's one. I think the other is trust. There's no counterfeits in PaniniBlockchain, or as far as I know, in a lot of the other digital collectible projects. There's no waiting to, to see what's in the cards. There's no trimming. There's, like right now there's this whole CT scanning issue.
Yeah.
So the ownership, is really beyond dispute, and the title pass is free and clear whenever a transaction happens on the ledger. I think transparency is really important. Like when I buy cards today, a lot of times in physical, they're not numbered. So there's like a lot of ambiguity around the supply of the cards. And the whole provenance of the card, like everything's stored on the ledger, right? With timestamps and the parties involved and the price. So I think that is big.
Yeah.
I live in Singapore. And so for me as a physical collector, it's really hard here, especially if I'm not collecting soccer or NBA. I mean, those are like big sports here.
Yeah.
So for me, I really like digital because it opened up the market to me to be able to NFL.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I was like, I do. Like what I end up doing is I have vaults set up in the US. And then, I don't know, once every 6 months, I like ship cards over. But there's risk in that.
Yeah.
Or I buy like my boxes of NFL cards from Australia. And so I don't have to do that with digital.
Yeah.
This isn't as big for me, but I think a lot of people like digital because of the utility. Like the NFTs have more valuable than the collectibles themselves.
Yeah.
So you can, a lot of times use that NFT to acquire additional NFTs through challenges and crafting.
Yeah.
You can burn them. Like we have commons like in physical that you have nothing you can do with. In digital, you can burn them for points that can be then used to buy more packs or buy other things.
Yeah.
They've even used digital for like access to events and games, and then other sites use digital sometimes for other types of gamification, like fantasy sports. And then the last thing with digital that I think is really, really interesting is the manufacturer, Panini, has skin in the game.
Yeah.
Because they make money off the secondary market. So then that creates this incentive to have the marketplace experience be great. Whereas today you don't necessarily get that on the physical side, right? It's up to like, the breakers or the Fanatics Collects of the world.
Then it will go to the auction. I think the onus of making things work goes to the auction houses in terms of pricing.
Right. To kind of create this like experience and this community. And the other thing too, that's really interesting about them having skin in the game on the secondary market is if they overproduce the cards, they make less money.
Yeah.
So it keeps this like balance in the supply demand equilibrium. And that's why so far you've seen in all their releases, like the base cards have been numbered and there's fewer variations per release.
Yeah.
Because of that. So I'd say those are like the advantages of digital. Of course, I think there's some,
and those are all big points. I mean, I've spoken about this with Spino last week as well. Like I'm from India again, which is by no means the epicenter of the hobby, right? Far from it. There are a ton of logistical challenges involved in getting something from the US or getting something from the UK shipped here, paying customs duties and fees on top of it. There's always that risk of fraudulent activities happening, of counterfeit cards. So I think it sort of does away with all of that. And that's a big plus. That's a big reason why I've spent a lot more time in the market. And even though I've been a physical collector for a large part of the last few years, after dabbling with the digital side for a few months now, I can confidently tell you that this is at least in my eyes, it's a much superior and a much safer experience.
It's interesting, right? Because on the physical side, like if you just think about a collectible is supposed to be this sort of like, when they call it a grail, like it's something that you hunt for forever. It's like hidden, it's mysterious. Like part of the reason it's rare is because it's biodegraded. It's a physical thing that a lot of these things get thrown in the trash over time. And so, there is, I think, an itch in collecting that physical scratches in terms of like things that age and that you can't find and that, that have this sort of mystery behind it. And I think that there's ways to try to replicate that on the digital, which you can't completely do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think I would agree. I think like digital is probably a superior collecting experience than physical, and it just keeps getting better. They keep finding like ways to make the experience better, faster, because of the innovation that the technology allows for. And if you think of that from a value perspective, what that means is the value of these digital collectibles at some point should be greater than their physical peers.
Yeah.
And today that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
So there's this big opportunity as well, while there's not a lot of awareness around these, to be able to get some really amazing pieces at a price that the average person can afford, which, is also part of the problem with physical right now. It's like you get so priced out, like, because there's so much buying power that market. And so I think over time that'll go away. When that happens is like the big debate, but to me, it's never been a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. And right now I'm just enjoying like the ability to buy great cars.
No, absolutely. And with that being said, I think there's also space for both of them, the physical and the digital space, to grow in tandem. Right? It's not like one is going to grow at the cost of the other. I don't think. I think a lot of physical collectors sometimes tend to feel a little threatened by the digital space, but I don't think that's the case at all. I think there's enough space for both of them to grow in tandem. There's factors and there's things that are unique to both of these experiences that can't be replicated by the others, and that gives both of them enough space to grow together.
There's been a lot of people who started their card collecting journeys on digital that I've seen cross over to physical and get into that space as well. And even for someone like me that was already collecting physical, like one of the things I've gotten into is pairing the cards. And I think that's really fun because like I can go hunt the card once on the digital side or the physical side. And then once I get it there, I'm like, oh, I want to try to pair and get the exact same card over on the other side. And it's like, you get like twice the dopamine hit, of hunting that card. So I agree. I don't think it's one versus the other, but I do think, some people can make it that way. They feel like they kind of get threatened about like, oh, like the mind share is going to shift over from what I care about to something else. And I put all this effort and energy into building up this collection. And so it can be threatening on either side.
Yeah.
But it really isn't that way once you kind of get into it and realize like that they sort of serve two different purposes, but they also have this common foundation of, if you collect things, these like really rare, precious sort of like sports collectibles, you can go to both physical and digital to kind of get that itch scratched,
Yeah. So there's obviously a lot of talk about growing the digital side, and there's a lot of people who talk about the hobby Xing over the next few years, or even 100Xing over the next few years. What are the things that you think need to happen in order for us to reach those sort of numbers, in order for us to see that kind of growth that a lot of people talk about?
Yeah. I mean, I think on the physical side, the 10Xing is probably just taking card collecting to the sports fan masses. And there's already been, I think, a lot said about the strategy to do that, because Fanatics has been kind of personally carrying that torch, right? And they're the one that brought up the 10Xing the hobby comment.
Yeah.
On the digital side, I think it's actually a lot easier, right? I think much of the foundation's already been laid. And I think we're very close to that 10 to 100Xing. I feel like the last hurdle, in my view, is that more certainty needs to be given of permanent ownership to these cards so that you can be confident, so confident in your ownership of them that you feel like, oh, I'll be able to leave these in my will for my kids.
Yeah.
And to do that, you need the ability to have self-custody of these cards, off of the platform of these providers like Panini.
Yeah.
And for Panini, I think that's actually going to become possible in the near future. And we just saw this with Topps as well. Giving this sort of permanent ownership
Yeah.
of the cards. I mean,
Yeah.
beyond that, I just think it's spreading awareness because once you're in these platforms, like once you're on PaniniBlockchain, I mean, collecting is fun as hell on that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
addictive. It's
Yeah.
just really kind of how many people are aware that this is an opportunity for them. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think a big part is getting people on the platform for the first time, right? I think that's a big challenge that I think Fanatics is trying to solve with physical cards, and that Panini would have to address with digital cards. How can we get them to download the app on their phone and then mess with it for 10, 15, 20 minutes? Because once they do that, the odds of them staying is greatly increased because of the kind of experience they provide.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. So for someone who's new, who's entering the digital space, right? Because this is a little unique to the physical space where you're buying physical cards, you can go out and buy packs or hobby boxes or joint breaks, or you can buy individual cards. With the digital experiences, actually there's quite a few facets to the experience which can be explored. For a newer collector entering, what do you think is the path they should take, or what are the things that they should be doing? Should they be going for the singles? Should they be getting packs, trying to flip packs, or try to build a bankroll and then buy singles using that money? What are the opportunities that you think exist for a newer collector?
I think it depends on your goals, right? Like you and I were kind of talking before this, like there's some people that are just there for the experience, and so they just want to open up packs and it's kind of like gambling in a way, right? And then you've got people who really want to, like they're kind of a pure collector in that they don't really care about the experience of ripping packs or the ROI that much, and they're just trying to kind of go get their best card of their favorite player from their favorite teams. And then you have the people who don't care about getting some return on investment in a way, whether it's kind of a near-term view or a mid to long-term view. So it kind of depends on your goal. I mean, if you're just there for the experience and the novelty of it and the gamification of it, it's really easy, right? You just need to, go on and buy packs and become aware of like these challenges and these crafting events that they run, running events that they run, and, play those games. And the best way to get information about that is on Discord. They have a official Panini Discord community.
Yeah.
They announce like all of these events and these releases before they happen.
Yeah.
If you're trying to figure out the best way to get started as a collector or even as an investor, and so it's less about the packs and more about the singles or the individual cards, I think, the thing I would say, like I talked about my collecting philosophy earlier, is I think instead of casting a wide net, and if you had $1,000 budget, instead of getting $110 cards, I would try to get, 2 to 5 cards, because this market's still so early in its infancy that there's more supply than buyers.
Yeah.
And so the cards that are going to really kind of appreciate the most or be sought after the most are going to be the most rare cards.
Yeah.
And if you're a physical collector, a lot of the same rules apply to digital collecting in terms of like how to maximize financial upside. It's now you're getting it in the form of a digital image instead of cardboard, right?
Yeah.
One rule of thumb I use whenever I'm buying digital cards is a 10-to-1 ratio between physical and digital cards.
Yeah.
When these cards are essentially identical. So if an Aaron Rodgers gold prism in physical cost $1,000, I can find one on the digital side for $100 or less. It's generally good value, right?
Yeah.
Now, over time, though, I expect that ratio to probably be 1-to-1. So the benchmark may change. The 12 months from now, but of late, what I've been using is kind of that 10-to-1 ratio.
I saw that 10-to-1 ratio play out a few times. So I think that's very close to what I was looking at. So I made a couple of key purchases lately. I picked up a Messi gold kaboom on the blockchain, which once again, so first Messi gold kaboom on chain, and it 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 was in line with that 10-to-1 ratio. So the physical equivalent of the exact same release was around $20,000, and I picked this one for I think $2,200.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's a massive card. I mean, the other thing that feels so special about that is, I mean, for a lot of people, $20,000, right? That's like a car,
Yeah,
or a used car at least, right? And so
absolutely.
there's so few people who could go and do something like that, but you now own one of like the most special, messy digital
Yeah,
cards in the
yeah,
world
yeah,
at something that a broader base of people can afford. I think like, you know, that sort of speaks to that right now, digital collecting is an inefficient market. And there's going to be these anomalies, right? Because it may just have to do with like how many Messi collectors are on the platform right now versus like
yeah,
Mbappe collectors, right?
yeah,
Versus Holland or whomever.
yeah,
And what I found is some players, card values are maybe only like a 5-to-1 ratio or a 3 to
yeah,
1 ratio because, it just so happens to be a bunch of that player's collectors on
yeah,
the platform. And it's
yeah,
very random, right?
yeah,
Whereas like some players, like I'm a big Spurs fan. So like Tim Duncan, I'm like more or less the only big Tim Duncan collector.
yeah,
So I've like been able to get like almost all of his Grail cards for really good value because he doesn't have like that many big digital collectors,
yeah,
which is funny because Manu Ginobili, his cards in physical are nowhere near the card values of Tim
uh,
Duncan physical.
uh,
Often had to pay almost as much for Ginobili cards as I've had to pay for Duncan's because unfortunately there are Ginobili collectors
yeah.
that I'm
And
competing against.
then another place where that plays out. I've seen this with soccer on the blockchain, and I was kind of trying to figure out why that happens. Is Cristiano Ronaldo probably number two behind Messi, right? It's a debate that could go on forever, but probably right now number two. So physical Ronaldo cards are generally, if you compare some of the top cards, it's generally 1 to 3 in the ratio of 1 to 3 is the prices of Ronaldo cards to Messi cards. On the blockchain, however, there are fewer Ronaldo collectors.
Yeah, it's much bigger.
Yeah, and so that ratio is actually in some cases 1:6, 1:7, even more sometimes, right? And there are a lot of Mbappe collectors on chain, and so while generally Ronaldo cards sell for more than Mbappe cards in the physical space, that's not the case with digital collectibles.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is like all that takes then is like 2 or 3 Ronaldo collectors to join the platform. And if you happen to be collecting those, you're going to get this immediate uptick in value because they're going to see the same anomaly, right? And there's like hundreds and hundreds of these that still exist on the platform. I mean, some, like the Grail of Grail cards, I think, those are, let's call it properly valued right now for where the market is. But there's all of these players or card types or tiers or levels of cards that are still like super undervalued, even within the market because it is so inefficient right now. And that's fun. Like, I mean, it's like if you are data driven at all as a collector, it doesn't take that much to sort of realize that these opportunities exist right now. And you also know that they'll just go away over time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think Panini is doing a great job with making the collecting experience a little better gradually. So they have the new marketplace update going, which has worked fantastic. So what are your thoughts on the new update? What do you think changes because of the new update? Some of the new features coming in, like global offers, for example. I think that has changed a big part of the buyer-seller dynamic, how people place offers and all of that. So what are the changes that you see happening because of the new update?
I mean, for me, the biggest change by far is making offers on unlisted cards. I mean, can you imagine in physical card collecting, if you had the ability to make an offer on every card you've ever dreamt of, like every card? That is essentially what Panini just made possible with global offers in the new marketplace. And it's led me to be able to acquire a few cards like I've been hoping would surface for the past 4 years. And I think that is by far the biggest benefit of the new
Yeah.
marketplace.
Yeah.
it was funny because like on Instagram, I saw all these like kind of dormant collectors
Yeah.
start to post messages like, is anybody else getting a lot of like notifications from Panini suddenly?
Yeah.
Because they had all these cards that weren't listed and
Yeah.
people were offering, offering to buy those cards. And it's gotten those people re-engaged, but it's also made some money and it's also unlocked cards and just created more liquidity, I think, in the market.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a different experience for the buyer, and it's a big step up for the buyer experience, but also from like a seller's perspective, I think it's a very different dynamic, because when you're putting in a global offer, there's pressure on each and every holder of the card, right? Like if there's $1,000 offer on a card that 10 people own, there's pressure on each one of those 10. Like how each of those think, maybe who pulls the trigger first or who gives in first. I think it's a new experience.
That particular example, I think benefits the buyer, right? But what I'll say is beneficial to the seller with the new marketplace is take somebody like me. I'm super long-term on the space. I rarely ever sell cards. So I don't list cards, but I've been getting offers now on all of my unlisted cards. And I've been surprised by, the value that certain buyers are placing on cards that I just assume maybe were not worth that much. And so I started to sell certain cards that I wasn't as passionate about.
Yeah.
And so I've become a seller in a way
Yeah.
when it wasn't really planned. And so I do think just from an active participation perspective in terms of the amount of commerce that's happening on the platform,
Yeah.
we've already seen it this month. This month will be, I think, the biggest month of commerce that Panini's done in the last 2 years, and the number of like active buyers and sellers that are, happening already in January, like halfway through the month is already much bigger than what we had last month and the month before.
Yeah. So a lot of that, I think, can definitely be chalked out to the new update, but there also has to be a big reason. I think the whole NFT space is doing pretty well right now. The crypto space is doing well, and there's proof to believe that there will be legislations that will make it easier for a lot of the crypto space, a lot of the NFT space to do well over the next few years. How do you think that ties into the performance of these collectibles?
Yeah, like I'm old enough to remember, when the .com era happened, and back in like the mid '90s, when websites came out and every website was like a business, and and people were like, oh my gosh, like you're asking me to put my credit card information online, like that's insane, I would never do that. And there was like this sort of like first wave of the technological innovation that came out where you had a lot of disbelievers. You also had a lot of failures, a lot of failed projects, but the technology in and of itself, the innovation was massive that was happening. And the same thing has now happened with NFTs and blockchain, creating this sort of decentralized ledger with smart contracts and the ability to essentially create ownership of digital assets.
Yeah.
And that truth is fundamental. Like that's not going away. And so a couple of years ago, we had the same thing. We had this sort of first wave and a lot of failed projects, a lot of disbelievers. And now that dust is settling and the second wave is picking up.
Yeah.
And so I think, that's playing a role as well in PaniniBlockchain, and some of these other projects are all kind of seeing these steady increases in demand right now because they're the projects that had the sound fundamentals that survived. And, it's no longer kind of this scary thing to be feared.
Yeah.
It's like it now kind of like past that sort of test of getting through kind of incubation or early adoption. And now kind of getting, I wouldn't say it's mainstream yet, but it's definitely like now in that second wave. And the first wave.
Yeah. Absolutely. So Panini is going to have a crucial few years in front of them in terms of the decisions they take, in terms of how they decide to manage the whole project. Here's a question which I saw pop up on the Discord very often, is that it's going to lose licenses to two of probably the biggest sports it has had for a while now. How do you think that impacts collectability, and how do you think it impacts new buyers entering the platform today and in a couple of years from now?
Yeah. History can kind of be your guide on some of this stuff because there's been other card manufacturers that have lost their licenses in the past, right? You've got Upper Deck, lost it on baseball and basketball, and you had Topps lose it on basketball and football. You had Fleer as well, right? So so what happened to those cards, right? Those cards, if anything, became more scarce.
Yeah.
And the value of those cards continued to climb over time. So I don't see that as being any different with Panini's blockchain cards. And as I mentioned earlier, they understand the value of permanent ownership and of this platform continuing on long beyond the licenses. And they've said this publicly now for a while, that that's a commitment they've made. They're making that investment in this space. And the reason being is that they have the secondary market revenue that will continue on.
Yeah.
If you just take like Michael Jordan's 1986 Fleer cards and the amount of revenue that's happening out there today, people buying and selling PSA 8, PSA 9s, PSA 10s, we're talking millions and millions of dollars that Panini, if the same thing happens with these NFTs down the line and they're taking like 5% clip, well, they're gonna make more than what they'll make from the original release of the cards annually, right? And so that never has been able to happen in physical, right? Like when Fleer released those cards, they get no benefit from the secondary market sales at all, right? That other people came in and took that value. So Panini still has that value. They still have that revenue stream. And so I think that the marketplace will remain, the ability to collect will remain. What you lose is new releases.
Yeah.
And so if you're someone who's there just to rip packs, that's gone, right? That'll be gone for at least officially licensed NFL, NBA, all the stuff that's kind of going to Fanatics, right?
Yeah.
Now they are exploring other licenses. I mean, they have soccer licenses, they have WNBA, they've got a variety of like players signed. So they will continue to release things, but let's be real, it's not going to be the same probably volume of cards that they're able to release year over year right now.
Yeah.
What likely will happen is, like we just discussed, if NFTs and digital collectibles as a whole are going now through that second or third wave of growth, the licensees, like the leagues and the licensees, are going to see that. And they will continue in this lineage in some shape or form. Now, whether that's Panini getting an opportunity to do that, or if it's going to be Fanatics that does that, or if it's, some expansion of Dapper Labs and what they're doing, like that hasn't played out yet.
Yeah.
But in my view, the licenses going away will be the sort of near-term dip in the ripping and the new supply experience. And it'll probably isolate those personas of collectors that are really just there to rip packs. But if you're there more to collect cards and players and whatnot, it'll probably only benefit you because there's going to be fewer of them, and the value of those things will continue to go up. And I do hope that each year we continue to see these new classes come out, because it would be a shame, like when Cooper Flag comes out in a few years in NBA, we can't get his rookie card in a digital collectible the same way that we can get Victor Wembanyama right now. So, you do want to continue to see these get released. I would be very surprised if that doesn't happen, whether it's from Fanatics or elsewhere. But what Panini has is all of the experience, the wisdom, and the investment of the past 5 years to build a platform that not only survived, the first sort of like NFT blockchain 1.0 winter, they grew, throughout that period, right? And so they're very well positioned, I think, to continue to be around. It's just to say, like, whether it's going to be something where the experience dips for a year or two and then comes back, or if it'll just kind of continue right on. I mean, for me, like I said, I'm pretty long term, so it's not a deal.
Absolutely. And I think I have a little bit of a hypothesis which I've been trying to work out. I discussed this with Spiro as well last week, is that I think soccer becomes a sport that is crucial. I mean, how Panini handles those releases becomes crucial to the success of the platform and interest, because it's a convergence of several factors here. It's the number one sport on the planet. It's the most watched sport on the planet. It is also a convergence of the factor that the collecting experience is becoming globalized with each passing day. More people globally are entering, like you're from Singapore, I'm from India. I've interacted with a lot of people from all sorts of different parts of the world on the platform. And as that continues to happen, more and more people will tend to lean towards a sport of global nature like soccer is. And also because Panini holds that license for the next 6 years, I think it becomes important how they handle it, and it'll sort of be the center point of, or rather it should be the center point of their strategy over the coming few years. At least that's what I think. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're trying to make me regret not collecting enough soccer cards. I just sold like a pretty big Mbappe card.
Yeah, I thought that's it. But you helped someone finish their gold set, so
Yeah, I know. It was like a guy who he's a really good guy, and that was the last card he needed to do the gold prism run, which is insane that he completed that set.
yeah.
I what I would say is I don't necessarily know that like just the sheer popularity of the sport alone is enough to kind of automatically kind of convert that into like collectible growth for whatever reason, right? I don't know if it's because a big part of soccer's popularity sits in, locations that historically haven't done sports card collecting as significantly that plays a role or not. But the fact that they'll continue on with those licenses, I think definitely you'll see some crossover of people who collect other sports into soccer. And soccer's popularity is growing in the US, of course, and that is a place where there is a lot of collecting. And so I do think, that will trigger some growth, but maybe not to the extent that people thought, because I think on the physical side, people have thought this now for the past 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I actually feel like NFL is going to be a sport that, surpasses the NBA in terms of collecting popularity, because about 10 or 15 years ago, it became a more popular sport than the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
And the NBA did the same thing to baseball back in the 80s and 90s. And that's what led them to kind of overtake baseball cards. But they're lagging effect of almost like a decade or so.
Yeah.
And I think NFL right now, the popularity of it is sky high. And they're doing the same thing NBA did, which is they're going international, right? They're playing games in Brazil and Germany, the UK. They're going to do games in our part of the world now too.
Yeah.
So, I think NFL will grow. I think soccer will grow. And then I think NBA is just this like massive juggernaut. I mean, those to me are like the big three.
Yeah.
And if I feel like any sport is going to suffer in terms of like hyper growth, when you go back to like the whole 10Xing thing, I think it might be baseball. Baseball has like a really loyal following, and like the statistician in you like gets into like, baseball card collecting. But I think the sport has not been growing. It's been kind of declining in popularity over time.
Mm-hmm.
And so as new kind of generations get into collecting,
Mm-hmm.
that may not be the default sport that they kind of go and like seek out players for.
Mm-hmm.
But from a Panini perspective, I do think the fact that they're holding on to those licenses will benefit them. But again, like we have history as our guide to see what happened with Fleer and Upper Deck and Top Exquisite, like all those brands, like those eras of collecting represent a certain nostalgia for a certain generation of people.
Yeah.
And Panini's always going to have that. There's going to be a generation that kind of grew up collecting Prism and National Treasures and Flawless.
Yeah.
And they are always going to seek those cards out. And that's going to continue on, I think, across all sports where they were popular, frankly. Even whenever Fanatics has the license, it's just going to be, for any kind of newer players, you're going to need to go kind of the Topps Chrome route or whichever kind of brands they release there.
Yeah.
To get the newer players.
But also, I think sometimes all it takes is that one player to sort of carry the sport on its back for a little while. And I think that can bring a lot of people to collect that player. I think there are a lot of high hopes from Victor Wembanyama. There's Lamine Yamal with soccer. I mean, people expect these people to carry the sport for the next few years. And I've definitely seen an explosion in the number of people who collect soccer, who collect Lamine Yamal just because of the way he's been playing. right? A lot of people want to get in on his cards because of the way he's been playing. Like Messi did that to the sport 20 years from now. And oftentimes when there's not that icon is absent, I think it can lead the sport to suffer a little bit in terms of collectability. But also the presence of that sort of an icon can ramp up the number of collectors or the number of people who want their cards significantly.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Wembanyama. I mean, I'm from San Antonio, and it's a double-edged sword that he's so popular, right? Because I want to collect Wembanyama, and I want like all of his best cards, but everybody else wants his best cards too. And so like in the physical side, I mean, his card prices are ridiculous. And like, I know like the hype will wear off over time because you saw it with LeBron James and Jordan and, even if you go into other sports, right, you saw it with Brady, after a while, and Mahomes even, had these like sort of dips. So
Yeah.
I'm waiting on the Wemby dip
Yeah.
to be able to get a couple Grail cards on the physical side. And fortunately, again, on the digital side, I've been able to get most of his biggest cards so far, which as a Spurs fan, like, I mean, I'm like just over the moon that I like get to like own like his Black Finite 1 of 1, like his rhythm. Like I'm like, I had to have that card. And fortunately it was in a price range that I could make that happen. But in physical, that card's probably 30 times more expensive, so you gotta kind of have to like sort of find your collecting tiers in a way.
Yeah. No, makes sense. And do you think Panini also leans towards some of the other less popular sports in a bid to get more collectors on the platform? Sports like tennis, golf. Because we're hearing a lot of news for those sports making like a debut on the platform, but
No, I mean, I personally have not. I mean, I also, they've kind of dabbled in different things. Like they did this like NASCAR release at one point. So they've done different sort of leagues in soccer. I think WNBA is potentially on the horizon, right? So you've got like, kind of these other areas where they do have the licenses. And I think it'll serve the audiences who want that. I just don't know how many people will cross over, from a particular sport, right? Like, I think like if I use myself as an example, because I'm on the platform, probably, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10% of what I've spent has been like in UFC and soccer and WWE, even though those aren't like core sports that I collect. 90+% has been NBA and NFL because those are like the two leagues I'm the most passionate about.
yeah.
I'm just using myself as an example. I mean, maybe others might be like, oh, you know what? Like tennis is here now. I'm going to go kind of do that. And if people have different objectives, maybe like they're trying to flip cards for value, or they're just looking at it purely from an investment perspective. I think you could see crossover from that. But as like a pure collector, you gotta have like your team, your sport, your players.
Yeah.
And you just, that's what you're there for.
Yeah.
And I think that'll be hard to traverse, right? In terms of like crossover for people who are already on the platform.
And I think it ties back into our original our discussion before we start the call. Is that we need more collectors on the platform. We need people who would hold cards regardless of price, because I think ultimately that is what all the other participants sort of feed off of.
Yeah. I mean, there's some of my favorite people on the platform are the people that I cannot extract cards from, who like will not sell under any instance. And I think like that is the definition of a collector, right? Where it's like, I'm not selling this at all costs. And it's the foundation of the entire ecosystem, right? There is no value in ripping packs to try to get some lottery ticket card if there's not an end collector on the other end who's willing to pay you big money for that card.
Yeah.
And there's no flipping value once those cards have come out to try to make like a short-term return. Yeah, if there's not that end customer, that end collector on the other side. And so if I'm in any of these platform shoes, these digital collecting platform shoes, I am targeting the collector persona first and foremost, because the entire ecosystem will follow, right? All of their personas will come, the investor, the flipper, the pack ripper, they will
Yeah.
all come if the collectors are there.
Yeah.
You have to build product that collectors love.
Yeah.
You have to build an experience that
Yeah.
collectors. And, you know, the good news with Panini is they actually give a shit about that stuff. They think about it. They think about it in terms of the population control of these digital assets that they're putting on the platform. They're thinking about it in terms of the design and the aesthetics of the cards. They think about it in terms of like some of the utility they've created where, you know, you can meet the players or you can go to sporting events.
Yeah.
There's, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of opportunity to continue to make the product even better.
Uh-huh.
But I think the more any of these companies focus on the collector persona, the
Yeah.
more successful the overall project.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is also what will ultimately drive prices up. We've seen this play out with physical as well, is the cards that are held on to by collectors for the longest, that don't sell as often as some of the other cards on the market. Those are the ones that typically tend to do the best in terms of prices as well. I mean, that there are some cards which they're quite expensive, but you see them on a premier auction almost every month.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's just economics, right? It's just supply and demand. And, you know, the more liquid cards like the Steph Curry, National Treasures, you know, True RPA to 99 or 25, the LeBron Exquisite to 99 or 23, and the Jordan 86 Fleer, you know,
the Brady rookie ticket.
yeah, the Brady rookie ticket, right? Like those are very liquid cards, and the next card that sells from the previous one isn't going to make usually this like material leap or decline. And don't get me wrong, that liquidity is helpful. And then those cards can still appreciate as the demand grows because the supply is not getting any bigger. But, you know, if you own a card that surfaces less than once a year,
Yeah.
you know, you're typically holding on to something that if the demand has risen, that demand gets pent up. And, you know, there's a lot of people who are willing to pay a huge increment over what you originally paid for it because they just may never know whenever they're going to see that card again. And that's a hard lesson for a lot of collectors, right? Because you do want the, you know, like the Brady rookie ticket, or you want the iconic cards, the 86 Fleer Jordan. When I got into collecting, I was like, I've got to have like that. I have one, I think right here, actually. I was like, I've got to have this card, right? I got to have like, the 86 Fleer Jordan. And I was so damn excited when I got it. I still love having the card.
Yeah.
Was it a good investment? Not at all. You know, not a good investment, but it's like, it's the brand of Jordan, right? That is like his card, so to speak. But is that the best thing from a return on investment perspective? Probably not.
That makes sense. So, Ben, before we cap this off, what are your 5 favorite NFT cards in the collection right now?
5 favorite NFT.
Yeah. Let's go in reverse. Let's start with number 5.
Okay.
And then you can go all the way down to number 1. You can, like, if you have your phone around, you can even show us those cards.
Okay. Yeah, I can possibly do that. Give me a second. So
yeah, sure.
probably number 5, I would say, is I have Steph Curry's first ever pack pulled Logo Man 1 of 1. It's kind of a nostalgia card for me. It was the first ever big purchase I had on the platform. It was from this really cool collector, Cyber. So it's just a card that sort of represents kind of when I started.
Yeah.
So that's number 5 for me, I would say. I'll go NFL for number 4. So as you're probably aware, Panini's first 100 ever NFTs was a multi-sport release where it was a National Treasure 1 of 1.
Yeah.
Diehard Packers fan, and there is a Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers NFT that got released in that first 100. People call it on the platform the OG 100 because it's the OG release. So that's, you know, Favre and Rodgers, like that's their first ever NFT. It's probably number 4. Number 3, that's hard. it's hard. These are probably in no particular order, but
Yeah, I can bet that happens in a collection like yours. I mean, it must be so hard to rank all of these, where you got all these great cards and
I'll show you the one I've got here
yeah.
on my infinite object.
Uh-huh.
This is probably, I don't know if this is one or top three for me, but this is Duncan's first ever pulled Prism, or it's his first ever pack pulled one of one, which is the 2020 Prism, a gold vinyl, which is interesting because for whatever reason, initially for digital releases, Panini for Prism did gold vinyl for the one of one, whereas they do black finite in physical. Now they eventually created parity around that, but the gold vinyl is for their first release what their one ones are.
Yeah, that's also an that's an interesting display piece that you've got.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we need more ways to display our digital collectibles. I think when that happens, it'll.
Well, this is big, right? So this like sits like in my room here, and I look at it every day, and that's cool.
Yeah.
I can't travel with this, right? Like I can't like put this in my pocket.
Yeah.
I was like, you look at one of these, right? And you can travel with one of these, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
but you won't, right? You won't travel around them.
What's that?
You would prefer not to put those in your pocket and you I mean, ideally you would want them in someplace safe where like
what I think would be really cool with the digital NFTs in terms of like displaying them. There's obviously like your online display, your spotlights, your sort of virtual museums or whatever you can show them. But again, like a lot of this is sometimes creating parity on like some of the benefits of physical collecting. So there's something about being there in person with people, right? Even though we have iPhones and iPads and computers, like we still value in-person human interaction.
Yeah.
I think the same exists for collecting. And so it would be really cool that if I could take like, this case that I take with me to card shows, if I had that full of NFTs. Yeah. Like in cases, and if I could even transact with that.
Yeah.
And if that could follow the digital collectible, and if I could go those up in display cases where you could visually walk by and so there's, I think something there as an opportunity where if you were to display these NFTs in a slab, same size as a physical card, and have it with the metadata on top and have it linked, the ownership of that slab linked to the ownership of the NFT. Yeah. It's no different than, if Panini wanted to just say, hey, whenever you buy this digital collectible, you get a physical gift and they kind of stay with each other. It's just that it's like, it remains digital in the slab as opposed to being a piece of cardboard, right?
Makes sense.
So then the other two I would say, okay, I guess I would probably, I'd say number two would be the Wemby black.
Yeah.
This could become number one over time. The guy needs to re-sign with San Antonio, and if he doesn't abandon us, I think that one will be by far like the best one in my collection. Yeah. And then my number one would be my favorite player, who's Ginobili, and his black finite.
Okay.
Now Ginobili doesn't have a lot of NFTs on the platform, so it's, as I mentioned before, Ginobili like is very competitive on the platform, so he's almost like as expensive as but I grew up in San Antonio. I watched David Robinson, and then when Duncan and Parker and Ginobili all came around, and I've never seen anybody in my life as competitive and passionate as a sport besides Michael Jordan. Yeah, Manu Ginobili. Yeah, I just like love the guy's fire. I loved his style of play. He was like just like this crazy player. And he did all these innovations in the game, like the Euro step. So I just love Ginobili. So to have like his best card is like just the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, yeah, and that's, I think that's one of the nicer things about the Panini NFT project, at least for now, is that you can get the best card of your favorite player for not a lot, at least for now. So, all right, yeah. So, Ben, last question before we hop off. What are your 2 or 3 predictions for 2025 for Panini NFT?
I think public chain will come this year, which is going to be a really big deal. I mean, that to me is like the last hurdle. If you can have self-custody of your cards and permanent ownership, I think it's game over at that point. So that I think will come this year. That's a prediction. It's not any, I have no guarantee
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
that. It's just a prediction.
Yeah.
And then I think the other prediction, I think we'll see at least one 6-figure sale happen. We were $2,000 away a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
And there are some monster cards that I think will finally get sold this year that break that.
That's the exact prediction that Spino made on the last episode as well. And he said which was the one card that he expected to hit that number was the Caitlin Clark Black Finite.
It could be. Yeah. I mean, I think if they release WNBA and Caitlin Clark's card gets released, that's one. But the other thing is with the being able to offer on unlisted cards now, there are like if you take like the Kobe Bryant 100 card, like he only literally has one NFT, just one. And it's a one of one. And it's a really, really historic card because they did a physical copy with the digital copy. And the physical copy is the last logo man he ever signed before he died. So it's his only NFT. And, it's inextricably intertwined with this physical card.
Yeah.
I mean, a card like that, like without a doubt, if it's sold publicly, should sell, I think, for that kind of a value, given the rise in the platform lately. If it was a year ago, I'd say probably not.
Yeah.
But now I think we're seeing that kind of opportunity emerge. So there's a handful of cards like that, which it just takes one savvy collector coming in that knows the opportunity and the upside and buys that. So I'll one up Spino. I think there will be multiple six-figure sales this year on the platform.
Yeah. That's a bold prediction. Let's see how that plays out. It'll be interesting to see how the platform plays out over the next few months because we're seeing a lot of new people enter the market. I've seen that Discord is full of new people right now, so it'll be, I
think the future's positive, man. The future's very positive. There's a lot of new users. There's a lot of excitement about the space. Panini did a lot to kind of grow organically and sustainably versus, trying to, again, kind of cater to the people who are just coming in to try to get like a quick return, and I think they have served the collector well. So I think you'll just continue to see that growth happen, but it's still early days. So you never know, right?
Yeah.
It's still, for me though, the last 4 years has been a blast. I mean, I have so much fun collecting. And I do it with my kids. My son has an account.
Yeah.
We rip packs together.
Yeah.
He's a big Cincinnati Bengals fan, and he's got like some Joe Burrows and some Jamar Chases and whatnot. Yeah. We do digital collecting together just like we do physical collecting. And the digital collecting is great because I'll be in a car with him going to soccer practice, and we'll rip a pack on the way to soccer practice where I can't do that physical.
Yeah.
So I think the world's going digital.
Yeah.
The next generation is going to be even more digital than current one.
Yeah.
You'll just, I think, continue to see this space innovate and grow, and it's happening right now. It's really cool to see. Like everything, it'll probably be ebbs and flows, right? You'll probably dip and then it'll probably come back again. But in general, if you look at it over a long enough time horizon, it's just going to keep going up.
Yeah. No, absolutely, Ben. This was a great chat. It was a pleasure speaking to you. Once again, thanks for taking the time out to chat. I'm sure a lot of people, when they watch this, are going to find this extremely insightful.
Well, look, I appreciate you doing this, and all the best with your future interviews.
Yeah, no, absolutely, Ben. Thanks a lot. So I'm just going to end the recording here.
See ya.